It's Jeannine Lee Lake, and it's spelled Jeannine, Lee, no hyphen, Lake.
And what are you running for?
I'm running for U.S. Congress in the 6th Congressional District. I just won my nomination on Tuesday, so that was exciting.
Jeannine Lee Lake joins me. She's running in Indiana's 6th District against Greg Pence.
Today, Jeannine Lee Lake is here with me. She's running for Congress for District 6.
Our own Dulce Sloan went to meet one such candidate to see what they're up against.
Jeannine Lake has her work cut out for her.
You said you're running against who?
Congressman Greg Pence. I ran against him in 2018. It was my first run, and I'd never done anything like that before, but the story that I tell is one that's really kind of a heartbreaking thing, but I decided to get into politics because my daughter, Constance, we were in the kitchen one day and we're just eating, and she said, do you think that the President of the United States is prejudiced against black people? Because I kind of feel like he doesn't like us.
These are not acts of peaceful protest. These are acts of domestic terror.
Or, does he hate black people? And we just got to talking, and it came in, we kind of developed the conversation a bit. And what I determined that night was I'm going to do something. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I said in my mind, I'm not going to, she's about 16 or 17 at the time. I said, there's absolutely no way I'm going to let her go into womanhood thinking in any way, shape, or form that she's viewed as a second-class citizen in the United States of America. That is unacceptable to me. So from there, I decided I'm going to get in the race. There were no women in the race. There were five white men on the Democratic side, and maybe 7 white men on the Republican side. Well, yeah, 7 or 8, because I think there was 14 in this group. And Greg Pence won his side, and by the grace of God, even though my district is 93% white, I won in 2018. And then the other day, we had about 8,800 votes, and then the first time when I won, but for some reason, the other day I won with about almost 25,000 votes when it was said and done. So I've got some momentum, and I'm feeling good. We've got a lot of room to make up, but I think we can do it, so.
Right.
How do you feel people are going to take away from this? Do you think that this is going to make a change? Do you think people are going to start voting? What are your thoughts on just the whole experience tonight?
Well, first of all, I'm really, really honored to be here. I'm excited because I feel I'm 50 years old, and I have never really felt as if there's been this kind of atmosphere. Do you realize there's people that are showing up here that never show up at MLK Day? They don't show up for Black History Month. They're nice people, don't get me wrong, very nice people, and they might be people that I know that care about me and my family, but they just won't take the time to show up for something like this. Yeah. And just to see the broad, diverse sea of faces, multi-generational, multiracial, transgender, gay, lesbian, straight, I feel like there is a shift in the atmosphere. There's a crack in the ceiling of racism, and in terms of systemic in the systemic racism that we've seen that has really led to this. Because even though yes, we're talking about Black Lives Matter and we're talking about cops, but the bottom line is those cops have been raised up in an environment where they think that's okay. So it's not just the police departments. Thank you, baby. It's not just the police departments. It's actually more than that. It's the larger society that we need to be worried about. Yes. More so even than the department, the police departments. Although those are the killings. So I understand that's the big thing. Yeah. But we got to be really, really mindful of the fact that for the first time, places like Eli Lilly, which is a Fortune 500 company, which is extremely conservative, they don't get involved in social issues. They issued a blistering statement against racism. They said that, yes, we know that all lives matter, but right now we're talking about Black Lives Matter. And that's what I want. Yes, that's powerful. To have a Fortune 500 company, which always puts the bottom line, finances, above everything, to come out and say that, to have banks, to have agencies, to have nonprofits, to have Fortune 500 companies, to have governments, to have. I've seen some really great cops take a knee. That's been heartwarming. That doesn't happen. You know that doesn't happen. No, and really, you know, in my belief, I think in about every situation, there's about 10% of every group, whether it's pastors, whether it's people in government, whether it's cops, government officials, journalists. You have about 10% that are that need to be weeded out, a little sketchy, and those bad apples make it bad for everybody else. But you know, I think that the weeding out is starting. And you know, if it takes, this is what it's going to take. It's going to take good cops to identify the bad cops in terms of this situation, and they're going to have to be able to forcefully move those people out of their departments, because that's what's been the problem. And we've had cops that are racist and they're killing black people. So the bottom line is, you know, when it came to George Floyd, it's undeniable. He didn't have a gun. He was immobile. He was handcuffed. He wasn't a clear and present danger to anyone, and he murdered him on live TV. And so I think, like I said up there, I don't know if you can hear me. There was couldn't really hear a lot, but I remember my mom growing up. In the 70s, I remember that she said that the reason why the Civil Rights Act of 1964 passed was because the media kept showing pictures in the newspaper of black people being hosed down with fire or hot with hoses, and little black girls being bombed in their churches, and little black kids being killed. And I think that that's what it's taken in this season too. When we saw George Floyd basically being suffocated and the life extinguished out of him on film for what was it, 8 minutes or something? 8 minutes and 46 seconds. I was uncomfortable on my knees for that long. Mm-hmm. I had to switch knees. I can't imagine, you know, the pain and torture that he went to. Anytime you're begging for your dead mama that had been dead 2 years to that exact day, you know, that's somebody that really, he should never have died. And I think that finally, we had the one, unfortunately, and he was sacrificed. But this made the shift.
So, Ms. Jeannine Lee, what would you say to those who speak on the opposite side? There's been a lot of people who use the riots as their excuse or their outspokenness against the protests and against the movement. What would you say to somebody who would say something as, well, once they start rioting, once the violence starts happening, it's no longer a protest. You guys lose your argument. What would you say to somebody who is standing so firm against us and only focuses on the looting and things like that?
Well, first of all, I think that this week has been much less violent, less rioting, and there's a couple reasons for that. One, we started having protests in the middle of the day or right at the end of the business hour, and then we codified it with a limit. Okay, we'll say between 5 and 7 is going to be the protesting. We can kind of hang around for an hour or so after that, but after 8 o'clock, we're done. And so anybody that comes after that, if you lose, you're not part of our group. You're part of your group.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think that was it. But the people, I mean, quite honestly, the people that want to believe the worst in anybody will look over the facts and they'll do whatever they want to do, because if you probably look on their page, or their social media and things like that, or within their life, there's probably not a lot of room for truth.
Oh yeah.
So.
And Ms. Jeannine Lee, regarding this protest today, what can you say to those who still think that we're nothing but looters and, according to the president, we're nothing but thugs? How many windows were broken today?
Absolutely zero.
All right. How many businesses were looted today?
Absolutely zero.
All right.
We're not thugs, and the people that do riot, you know, I'm in the category these days. You know, I grew up very poor. I was one of 15 children. My mom and dad were married for 46 years, and so I grew up very poor. And so when I see the rioters and I see the people that are looting, I think in my mind, they're but for the grace of God that I got. And I say that because I was born and raised in Crawfordsville. I'm born in Indianapolis, raised in Crawfordsville, amongst a lot of people that loved on me and they took care of me. I was in a two-parent household. My dad always worked. He beat my butt when it was bad, you know. But had I been raised and became an adult that had a hopeless future, that I was bitter and angry, and I'd been pulled over and I'd been arrested and I'd been singled out and I was part of the school to prison pipeline, I might be out there too. And I'm not justifying it, because they need to be held accountable for breaking the law. But at the same time too, I can understand where that's anger fueled. Those are anger fueled behaviors, and I can understand. But even then, they're not thugs. Those are human beings, and they're hurting. And what we need to do is figure out a way to get them to channel that anger into something more positive.
Thank you so much, Jeannine Lee.
You're welcome. You're welcome.